Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the FY2022 Maryland Senior Rides Grant Application Briefing. I appreciate you joining us this morning. I am Nancy Huggins, Senior Rides Program Manager for the Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Transit Administration. And with me this morning is Gladys Hurwitz from MDOT, who will be assisting me with the facilitation of this meeting. The session is being recorded, and should you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please, Gladys. So let's review some of these webinar FAQs as needed. Most of you have been doing webinars for quite some time now, so you probably understand it. But if I select computer or audio, phone audio, which I'm sure you've already done, questions can be used for both technical issues and Q&A. And all sessions, as I stated earlier, will be recorded and available on the Transportation Association of Maryland website under Office of Local Transit Support. So now let's take a couple of short polls so I can gauge where we stand with the participants. So you can join either by web by going to pollev.com and enter MDOT 253 and respond to the activity. You can also text to MDOT 253 to 22333. Again, that's text MDOT 253 to 22333, and then you can text in your message. So we'll just give a moment or so for everyone to be able to do one of those two activities, join by web or by text. So again, it's for the web, it's pollev.com, and you enter in MDOT 253 and respond to the activity as we come up, or text MDOT 253 to 22333. All right, so poll number 1. I'm curious to know if you have an active volunteer driver program. So you can either go on to the MDOT or to the text message. So it's yes is A, no is B, and C is don't know. Okay. I don't see any activity, so I'm wondering if folks have not been able to either text it or log into the web. All right. Still don't see anything. All right, well, I guess folks are not interested in participating in this poll.
Maybe give them one more sec.
Of course.
Folks, if you're having any issues with the polls, feel free to go ahead and also just type in a message, and we'll make sure that your answer is relayed. But if you want to give them a couple more seconds, Nancy.
Sure, be happy to. All right, Gladys, why don't we move on then, since it doesn't look like anyone's going to be able to participate. Okay, so does I'd also like to know if your agency has applied for the grant in the past. So again, this is the Senior Ride Program grant, and if you have, please mark A, and if you haven't, B, and if you don't know, please hit C. Okay, so I got 100% yes so far. Do I have any no's? Okay, So it looks like I have, everyone has been through this, so this should be a very easy briefing because not much has changed. So I'll just go through the steps just to make sure that everyone is understanding of everything. So with that, let's continue on. Thank you. So as we know, today we're going to cover the following items. We'll look at the general information, which includes the definitions. We'll talk a little bit about the application schedule, the history and the program focus, the eligibility, funding and local match requirements, our criteria for the evaluation of the grant applications, the reporting requirements, and the application instructions and budgeting. We'll also talk a little bit about certifications and assurances. Now we move on. So the Maryland, or this grant application can be found on the Transportation in Maryland website under Resources, Office of Local Transit Support, and is available as a handout within this webinar. Please note, actually it's not within the webinar because this is a little different time, but if you cannot download it off of the TAM website, nor have you not received it by me by email, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll make sure that you get a copy. It is in a Microsoft format. This application package is for the Maryland Senior Rides Program for FY22. And we anticipate the funding to remain the same as FY21, which was $187,000. Applications are due by April 9th, 2021 by 4 p.m., either by uploading to ProjectWise if you're on ProjectWise, and there is a folder for you on ProjectWise. If you're not in the SR-5310 section of ProjectWise, you can email it to me, and if you're not on ProjectWise at all, please email it to me, or at least reach out to me to figure out the best way for delivery. Please note, if selected as a recipient, you do not already have ProjectWise, you'll be required to download ProjectWise, and the program manager, which is me, will work with you to do that. This is important. It's an operating grant to run services as opposed to a capital, which buys tangible goods. And the match is 75% state government and a minimum of 25% from the local dollars. The selection committee is made up of representatives from the MDOT MTA, Department of Aging, Department of Disabilities, State Coordinating Committee for Human Service Transportation, and MDOT MTA's regional coordinating bodies. Recommendations for awards will be made to the Secretary of Transportation. At this time, I want to let you know a little bit about our definitions. Door-to-door transportation means providing through prearranged appointment and safe escort from a departure point into and out of a transport vehicle and to the door of the destination. Low income to moderate income means the household income of an individual does not exceed 400% of the poverty threshold that is established by the United States Department of Commerce, Bureau of Statistics for a given year. And senior means an individual age 60 and older. And these definitions do come from the state legislation. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. So the application schedule, thank you. The application schedule, again, it can be found on the Transportation Association of Maryland website. It is January 22nd, 21, the application period started. February 5, which is today, is our webinar. April 9th, 2021, the applications are due. June 2021, the notification of awards will be made, and the funding year will be July 1, 2021 through June 30 of 22. So a little history. The program was introduced in 2004. FY 2006 was the first year of funding for the Maryland Senior Rides Demonstration Program. And in 2007, the word demonstration was dropped and became Maryland Senior Rides Program, or I also call it the SRP. And you can see here that it was House Bill 1189, which is enacted as Chapter 268 Acts of 2007. Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on. So the program focus. The primary focus is to encourage and facilitate the development of a volunteer and or paid transportation services. Now, I want to stress that it's primarily volunteer services for low income to moderate income seniors. Eligibility and entity or eligible entities include local and state government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and faith-based entities that provide transportation and are a 501c3 entity from the Internal Revenue Code. Thank you. So let's take a look at the eligibility requirements. An agency must be able to provide door-to-door transportation for low-income to moderate-income seniors who have difficulty accessing or using existing transportation services. It also uses primarily volunteer drivers who drive their own vehicles, and that is directly from the state law. We'll continue on and to the next slide, please, right? So it uses a dispatching system to respond quickly to requests from low income to moderate income seniors for the door-to-door transportation. Also defines a geographic area for which door-to-door transportation is provided. And I'd like to note that service may be provided to eligible seniors who do not reside in that geographic area as it's defined in the application, so long as the service is not diminished to seniors who reside in the targeted geographic area. In other words, that means that you have your geographic area that you work with. However, you are able to go from another geographic area, like a different county, to bring folks into your service area, just as long as it does not take away from the seniors in your area. Thank you. So, funding. Funding is approved annually by the Maryland General Assembly. We anticipate, and I say anticipate, funding levels to remain the same as last year's funding level of $187,000. The grant is for operating funds only, no capital. Capital, remember, means buying tangible goods. This is only for operating. The local matches 25% of the total funds requested in your operating costs and associated with providing door-to-door transportation services for low to moderate income seniors. These funds must come through local sources. No in-kind services may be used for local match. For example, you may not use volunteer services as a match. Program participants may provide reasonable fees or fares, and revenue generated from user fees, fares, or donations may not be used as your local match. In other words, if you have funding from foundations, other foundations, non-transportation funding, then that would be eligible as a local match. And we go on next. So MDOT MTA will award grants each year based on funding availability, the number of eligible applicants received, and the quality of the proposed projects. And we will also look at the variety of areas. So we have the Baltimore metropolitan area, which is Baltimore County, the city of Baltimore, Harford County, Carroll County, Anne Arundel County, Howard, and Cecil. The Washington, D.C. metropolitan area is Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Frederick County. Western Maryland, Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington. Southern Maryland is Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's counties. And the Eastern Shores, Kent County, Caroline County, Talbot, Queen Anne's, Dorchester, Somerset, Wycomico, and Worcester. Okay, next. So there are 5 criteria that the review committee will be looking at. Please note that there has been a slight revision from the FY21 application process. The maximum number of points that the application will be scored on is 100. And when you prepare your marketing and outreach plan, we ask that you submit samples. PDFs are fine of your marketing materials. So up to 25 points will be the ability to reach your targeted population of low income to moderate income seniors and to provide the door-to-door transportation. Up to 20 points is the ability to project the volume of ridership and promote the basis for your projection. Up to 20%, or 20 points, sorry, is to provide the plan to market and outreach and attract riders and drivers. I understand that this is difficult times with the COVID-19 pandemic. However, I'd like you to go on like we will be back to normal in FY21. Going on further. So the next slide, please. Okay, so up to 10 points will be the demonstration of the ability to sustain the transportation should funding be reduced and or the grant funding not be available. Again, remember, we count on the funding, but we do not know until the General Assembly approves it. So up to 25 points is to demonstrate the ability to coordinate with your dispatch system with a local central dispatch system. Explain how your agency encourages shared rides, coordination between public and private transportation, and finally, your agency's innovative approach to risk management for the drivers and the passengers. So it's the responsibility of the applicant to develop a risk management policy and procedures and document that which addresses the following areas. Criminal background and driving record checks for all drivers to protect your organization and the passengers. Driver and vehicle safety. This could include operating policies that will protect the driver and the passenger from safety, vehicle safety, and maintenance standards. Vehicle inspections and volunteer vehicle insurance. We ask that you develop a safety training program, which could include the driving techniques, defensive driving, passenger assistance and sensitivity, accident or incident procedures, CPR and first aid, communications and record keeping procedures. Programs should be utilized with a new driver and possibly annual driver information. Provide liability for your program beyond the personal vehicle insurance of your volunteers. So again, it's criminal background and driving record checks, driver and vehicle safety, driver training, and liability coverage. Moving on, so the Senior Ride Program recipients must submit quarterly reports as well as an annual report to the MDOT MTA. Quarterly reports must accompany each quarterly request for payments, which is submitted to MDOT MTA. MDOT MTA uses the quarterly reports to evaluate how efficiently and effectively the local recipients are using the Senior Ride Program funding. Information is collected and used in an annual report to the governor. And that annual report is really important to provide as much information as possible, because once the annual report is prepared and submitted to the governor, and that is a key for us to continue receiving funds and possibly even expanding the fund base at some point. So there are some information there are some items of information that we look for. We look for the costs, your matching funds, the statistics that you have of service, your cooperative efforts, and your risk management. So moving on. So the information that is circulated to the selection committee for their review, evaluation, scoring, and selection is in the package that includes forms, questions, which must be completed in the entirety in order for your application to be considered. In part 1, we must follow the format as structured in the package so that the selection committee can fairly evaluate your application. So it's basically apples to apples. For those agencies on ProjectWise, you can submit your grant in the appropriate folder, but remember to contact the program manager, which in this case is me at this time, so that I know that you have done that. For those agencies, again, not on ProjectWise, and to ensure submission, I recommend that you contact me and email me your grant application, again, which is me, to the program manager. So in the part 2, this section contains the assurances that must be met in order for your organization's application to be considered by the selection committee. The form must be completed and signed exactly as printed in this package. Alterations to the text of the assurances will invalidate your application. Also, if you're a 501c3 organization, please attach the agency's certification. And for those agencies on ProjectWise, submit your grant in the appropriate folder. And remember to contact me when you do so. And again, for those that are not on ProjectWise, contact me so we can work out, and then you can email it to me. So next one, for your convenience, we've been provided a checklist, and I recommend that you include it in your application. And this is what it looks like. It has the checklist for the summary page, your funding request, your organization experience, and so on and so forth. So this is the first page of your application. So it has all the pertinent information. It's basically just a snapshot for us, so that when all the reviewers take a look, they can see, who's applying and all the pertinent information, and also has just tells us what counties are served, and what, a snapshot of what your project will look like. Next page. So this is the funding request. So we ask for this should be included as your second page, the funding request, which is your total project expenses, your operating revenue, your net project cost, your total funds requested, your state funds requested, your local match, and the local overmatch. And then we also ask that you provide us the source of your local funds. So here's an example of a funding request in this request. So let's say that your total project expense is $150,000. Your operating revenue, which can be fares, fees or user donations, equals $10,000. Then you'll take A and subtract B to get the net project cost. Then you'll figure out the total funds you would like to request. The example shows, in this case, $20,000. From that, you will take 75% of the total to get the total state funds, which you'll be requesting. The remaining 25% of the local share will be subject to, the remaining 25% will be the local share. Finally, you'll take the total net project costs and subtract the total funds requested, and then you'll get the local overmatch. So in this particular case, so we have the 150 is the total expenses, your operating revenue is 10, your net project cost is 140. I'm going to request $20,000 for this program. 15,000 would be the state fund request. Your local match will be 5,000, and then your local overmatch would be C minus D, which would be 120,000 in your local overmatch. And then, of course, the source of local funds will tell us exactly where the other funds are coming from. This could be donations, your general fund, other grant sources, etc. And as you're moving through this, of course, I'll be happy to assist you if needed. So let's take a look at the proposed program narrative. So we'd like you to describe your relevant organizational experience, which includes how you provide door-to-door transportation, working with seniors or disabled, working with volunteers. And then we ask you to describe what your efforts are going to be. You know, how are you going to accomplish this? What barriers you've received from previous years' funding? And I'm sure on B, I'm going to hear a lot about how the COVID-19 has really taken a hit. But what would be a really good idea is to let us know how you've adapted. I know in some cases, senior ride programs have adapted by delivering food, delivering supplies to seniors, working with other agencies to be able to reach out and talk with the seniors to keep them engaged so that they're not alone at home. So that would be a really good place to describe not only the barriers that you had, but how you managed to get around that. C, we would ask that you indicate how the funds awarded through the program would be used. Example, if new or expanded services, bringing on new volunteers, more marketing, things like that. Also, we'd like you to describe your operating policies and characteristics for the proposed project. Basically, you answer the questions. Then we'll also ask you to describe your organizational staffing and management for the project. We'll ask if there's any current or projected ridership to be provided on the target population. In other words, you know, what are you doing currently? What do you project for 21 per month by the end of projected? I guess I apologize. That should be for 22. I guess I missed that in the application. So when you get to the application, please adjust that because we're looking for what you project for the future. And what marketing and outreach methods and strategies will be used. We also ask you to provide your implementation plans, how the project will be sustained should funding be reduced or not available or even expanded. And then we ask how the project will be coordinated with other organizations and services in your community, among your passengers, etc. We also just ask that you describe how your organization will manage risk and provide safe delivery of your services to your clients. The following slide shows samples of the components that could make up the budget for your program. Your program can use some of them or all of the items. So we have operating expenses, maintenance expenses, and there's a list of how you may or may not, or how you may use some or all. Administrative costs. Then so here are the administrative costs, your total project expenses, what operating revenue could be used, and then your total revenue, project revenue. And then you have your net project cost, which is the total project expenses minus the operating revenue. And in what I showed you earlier, my total expenses was 150,000. My total project revenue was 10. Then my total net project was 140. Again, taking another look at this slide, talks about the total funds requested and the state funds requested. The state funds requested is what the recipient will receive from MDOT MTA. Now, knowing that the net projects, we might want to think about what we have in the way of local cash match for the total local funds that you have available. Remember, it must be 25% of the total funds requested. Now I'm going back to my example earlier. So we say we have $5,000 that our organization can put up to the 25% match. To find out what the 75% of the state local funds requested, we take the 5,000, divide it by 0.25, and that will give you 20,000, which will be your total funds requested. And you take the total funds requested, multiply it by 75 to get the state funds requested. In this case, the state funds is 15,000. The local overmatch is the net, I'm sorry, would you go back one? The local overmatch is the total net project minus the total funds requested. In our example, 140,000 net project cost minus the 20,000 would equal 120,000 for the local overmatch funds. Remember, all matching funds can come from other grants, general funds, etc. If you have any questions about a match, please feel free to reach out to me. Okay, thank you. So this part is really important document and should be signed. The first part assures that the applicant has the fiscal, managerial, and legal capability to carry out the senior ride program and to receive and disperse state funds. Some combination of local and private funding sources has or will be committed to provide the required local share. Applicant has and will comply with the administrative requirements that relate to the applications made to and the grants received from the Maryland Department of Transportation for the Senior Rides program. In the second part of the application, it assures that no person on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, handicap shall be excluded from the participation in or denied the benefits of or be subject to discrimination upon the said project, program, or activity. The applicant shall not discriminate against any employee or applicant employment because of race, color, sex, national organization, and shall take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that the employees are treated during employment without regard to their race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. So that's all the equal rights assurances. Thank you. So the operations reporting form will be included with your grant agreement, plus the program manager will send out an electronic version, plus it will also be put on ProjectWise. We'll ask things like quarterly and things like for quarterly and annually, the total number of seniors transported, number of drivers, volunteers paid, and total drivers, the total number of one-way rides during the period, total number of senior ride miles during the period, and the total senior ride hours. If seniors are charged a fee, we'll ask that. Excuse me one second. Okay. Annually, we'll ask the cooperative efforts being done during the period and what the agency's approach to risk management is. And again, I want to stress that all of the information that we required during each of the quarters plus the final report is all collected and put into a report to the governor each September. So, okay, moving on. So the grant application can be found on the Transportation Association of Maryland website. Here's my contact information, nhuggins@mdot.maryland.gov. My number is 410-767-8356. Applications are due April 9th at 4 p.m. And that's either by uploading to ProjectWise and emailing me, letting me know it's there, or emailing me for directions on the best way to submit the application for anyone who's not on the ProjectWise under SR-5310. So with that, if anyone has any questions, Gladys, if you see anything, I'll be happy to address them right now.
Perfect. So Nancy, just to provide some insight about why we may not have received any answers to our first poll question, one of our attendees shared that they do have an active senior rides program, but because of COVID restrictions, they weren't offering any rides at this time. So I think people were just probably unsure how to answer that first poll. So that's probably why we got crickets on that first one.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Again, I know that during the COVID, it's been a real challenge for the senior ride programs. But like I said, I have been in contact with several programs that have actually taken a look at how they could continue to serve the seniors by transporting food, by transporting supplies. One agency has been contacting their clients on a regular basis just to make sure that everybody's in good shape. So again, I understand that, but with this application, I mean, you still have your funding. But remember, it is a operations funding that if we don't spend the funds, it could go away at the end of the fiscal year. So keep that in mind. Reach out to me should you want to discuss how you plan to spend those funds, what challenges you're having. I'll be happy to discuss that with you, give some additional suggestions. With regards to the FY2022 grant application, please let me know what your barriers and the challenges were and how you may have overcome some of those. I think we're all being a little bit more flexible because of the pandemic. But the important thing is I'd like to try and spend the money, because if we don't spend the money, we could lose it. So again, reach out to me if you'd like to discuss that further. Any other questions, Gladys?
Nancy, for the application, do you recommend that folks approach it with the pandemic because there's a lot of uncertainty right now? Should they
Right.
approach it with a pandemic in the horizon and without? Does that help at all?
Well, I would first and foremost act like there is no pandemic, of what you would be going forward. However, you can certainly put like little caveats in there that, maybe, what it would look like post-pandemic, now that we have the vaccines coming online. I don't know, no one knows when we're going to be back to normal, but I'm going to give as much leeway as possible to what you would like to be what you would be doing if there was no pandemic, and how you could adjust to assist your seniors with this program. I hope that helps. If not, again, reach out to me if you want to chat offline.
And then it looks like there's one question here about, will there be a copy of the quarterly report format in the application packet?
I believe there is. I'd have to take a quick peek at that. I believe there is. I can certainly send that out to whomever is asking. If you just send me an email at nhuggins@mdotmta, I'm sorry, mdot.maryland.gov, I'll be happy to send you a copy of the form.
Okay, great. I think that's all the questions that we have for now, Nancy. Thank you.
Great. Well, again, I'm available to answer any questions as you're thinking about it, as you're going through and preparing your application. I thank you very much for your time today, and I wish you all the best for a successful application. And please stay well, stay healthy, and keep doing all the great work that you do. Thank you so much. And thank you, Gladys, for assisting me and being my support for this webinar. So everybody have a great day.